Hi everyone, I am Tracee Ayer, and this is a Wonky Perspectives podcast. Thank you for listening. I would like to welcome Tracee Lydia Garner, and the preferred pronouns are she and her. She is an accomplished romance author, a disability advocate for muscular dystrophy. She has a communications degree, she's a poet, a writing coach, and I don't know what else you've done, but goodness gracious. She's even been an adjunct professor at Northern Virginia Community College, and that is a remarkable achievement, as you will soon understand once we start talking to her. She's also had the Northern Virginia Women's Conference has awarded her, Tracee, that is, the Stellar, not me, Tracee, the Stellar Woman Award for her achievements. She's a staunch advocate for muscular dystrophy and for disabilities. So, welcome, welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fabulous. Thanks so much for having me.
So, muscular dystrophy, would you like to give us a little understanding, the layperson's version, and then we can proceed from there?
Sure. Muscular dystrophy is a degenerative neuromuscular disease. It affects the muscles, not the brain, as many people would have you believe, but it makes your muscles weaker over time and just causes you to get progressively weaker and weaker. The most popular form of muscular dystrophy is ALS. A lot of people don't know that. Lou Gehrig's disease is actually a form of muscular dystrophy, and it's kind of the more popular one just because of the ice bucket challenge. And I have SMA. A lot of the muscular dystrophies have 3 letters or 2 letters. So I have spinal muscular atrophy, and I was diagnosed at 2 years old. And I could walk until I was about 10 with crutches and with holding on to things and getting around that way. But as the disease takes over, it makes you weaker. And so I have severe weakness in my arms and my limbs, and use a wheelchair full time. So I use a wheelchair all day long. But there's over actually 50 types of muscular dystrophy. So
Mm-hmm.
different types that people have. It happens at different stages, but usually in your youth. If you don't get diagnosed early, around 2 or 3, like I did, you get diagnosed later in your teens and adolescence.
Right. So, to let's break that down. So, muscular dystrophy is usually a problem of two things. Either it's a high elevated creatine protein, which is found in skeletal muscles,
Mm-hmm.
not neural muscles. So let's put that out. And what happens is creatine kinase is a specific enzyme which attaches phosphate to a particular protein, and that allows a quick release of energy when the body needs it. So what happens is you are constantly, if you have an elevated level of this particular protein, that means your body is not able to use it effectively and efficiently, which means you don't have energy to do things. First. Second is that there's a protein also called dystrophin, and dystrophin a is a bigger problem because it so imagine a vessel that holds all of your cellular information, like your mitochondria, your ATP, all of your proteins, all of your things inside, and it's usually called it's a double walled cell, right? That's your cell. So imagine a vessel like a bucket that holds all this water, but it's leaky and it's not able to sustain the water contents. So that's what's happening with dystrophin is it has such weakness in its formation that instead of holding it in, it just like it throws out the water and therefore is leaky and is problematic. So this this is if you've ever had, say, a broken bone and you've had to just say you've had a broken leg or something, and you've had to sit in your bed for 6 months. The amount of weakness that your body builds is called atrophy because you're not using that muscle often, you're not using your leg muscles often. And when you first start, getting better, you have to do physical therapy to regain your strength. But now imagine that you could never regain that strength. And throughout your life, you're continuing to atrophy and your muscles become weaker and weaker. So that is what muscular dystrophy is. It's not because of the broken bone, obviously. It's because of these two problems that I specified earlier. But that's the level of atrophy and weakness that the body undergoes, which means the biggest problems would be your heart, your lungs, your biggest muscles, which are in your thighs and your arms. They inflate because they're trying their best to hold the shape, but they can't. And so it affects a lot of different things, and it's a progressive disease. So for some people it's actually deadly. For What about you, Tracee? Is this a problem for you?
Yeah, I mean, all diseases, eventually kind of end up in death. It depends on, I think, a couple of different factors as far as how far you progress. Even Stephen Hawking, who had, something similar, he was able to live 50 years. And
Right.
I'm really excited about the studies on him
Yeah.
to see why that was, why some people progress so rapidly and
Yeah.
others really deteriorate, or others are able to maintain him. He couldn't move anything but his eyes, barely even his facial expressions. And so it just really depends. And, I joke that I'll be the oldest living person just because I have such a great attitude. And I'm always looking for people like, who was the oldest person, and so far, I've only found somebody in like their 60s, maybe early 70s. So that
Yeah.
part is kind of, hard to take. But honestly, because of my attitude, I try not to get hung up
Mm-hmm.
on some of the jargon, that you mentioned. And that's fine if people are interested in that. But one thing I wanted to mention is just that, people are always like, well, why can't you work out? Or why don't you do exercise? And sometimes some of that muscle and strengthening and conditioning that people do actually can make your muscles deteriorate more rapidly. So
Absolutely.
actually, ill-advised, people frown on you because you don't do anything, and it's like just getting up every day and just going to my regular job and driving and doing all the mechanics that I'm doing to work my muscles, just
Mm-hmm.
day-to-day activities is really kind of enough. And so sometimes, I don't want people that have I have to feel bad. But yeah, it really depends. I mean, I think my greatest reason for success is just that my parents made me do things as a child where today's parents don't make their child do anything.
Right.
They just let them kind of sit around and waste away. And I was in swimming as a child, and I helped around the house. I set the table on my hands and knees.
Mm-hmm.
Just crawling around, pulling myself up to get forks and knives, and then crawling back to the table to put everything in the proper place. And then today's parents don't do any of that stuff. And I think that is where the real issue is as far as, the long-term effects of what happens to your muscles over time.
Yeah. So let's unravel this a bit. You went through a lot of different things. So one was the issue of conditioning. If you try to exercise more, it actually hurts your body more because your body is not able to reabsorb those muscular proteins and use enough ATP. So you're actually doing damage for yourself. So understanding and balancing the fact that you can do work on a regular basis, like just brushing your own teeth, going to the kitchen and making yourself food, all that regular activities help you live. But doing things like going to the gym and picking up a 5 pound whatever doesn't make it's not good for you because you're overworking your muscles every single day. So your baseline is different. And that is a big thing that other people don't understand. And so they either push you too much or they don't push you at all, which is what you were referring to with the parents, right? The parental guidance,
Yes.
where they're so afraid of asking somebody to do something that they simply just like, okay, they just shake their hands off and they're like, okay, I'm just gonna do this for you because I think everything is so painful for you that It's just wrong of me to ask you to do something, which
Right.
is
It's
a
sad.
completely
Hmm.
um, it's an enabling behavior and not a supportive behavior. And the other side is where people are like, what are you talking about? You just have to work, go to the freaking gym, go and work out, you know. That's the other side, where it's so much that people will be relentless in pushing you so much that your body breaks down. So you obviously have to find a balance between the two, and just try to understand what the body needs versus what you want your body to do. Completely two different things.
Yeah.
And
Parents also feeling guilty, I think, about pushing someone. You know,
exactly.
if they die sooner, that's kind of on your head too, because you didn't make them do anything. You didn't build up their muscle as far as their
Hmm.
lungs, get them physical therapy, have them sit up, even try standing. There are even, child standers for 2 and 3 year olds.
Yeah.
Those are major advances that weren't even around when I was in
Hmm.
school. And so just those things, you need to get your child doing those things, because you really aren't sure what your child can do until you push them, push them to
Absolutely.
do things. So you'll never know what kind of capacity they have. And don't you want them to live as long as they can? So doing those things early on, and sadly, it's not just for people with disabilities. It's for, I argue, I have some personal thoughts about millennials, but I argue that, some of that also happens to kids that don't have disabilities. So it's kind of a
Hey,
universal
I'm an
thing.
older millennial, by the way.
Yes, I'm sure you don't fit this category that I'm talking about. But anyway, be
Oh,
careful what I say. They all come and like attack me or send me hate mails.
nah, I mean, the one thing about millennials is we don't care about anything about such
That's true.
small tax rate, so it doesn't matter. But let's talk about this. This is actually super interesting to me because I have never met anybody of your age who has muscular dystrophy.
Mhm.
Because and I think it's because, as you said, it's your positive attitude. It's
Mhm.
your I can do this and I will do this. I don't care about what the world tells me.
Mhm.
I will do it and I will find out if I can do it. And could you talk about you mentioned on your website about the importance of faith and
Mhm.
how that's been critical in your life. Could you talk a bit about that, please?
Yeah, I think early on, my dad was an ordained minister in 1971, and I was born in 1976, so he was already pastoring and everything when I got here. He is deceased now. He died in 2011, but he was, always had, obviously, was a man of faith, very Southern, very Baptist, and just being carted all around to churches and different things and learning the Bible. And it took me a long time to understand, why people have a disability. And in the Bible, it says, not because this man has sinned, but because, God will get the glory. So everything that I do, I try to think about that. And it's hard because sometimes I ask God, like, are you done yet? Do you have enough glory? Have I, made you proud enough? Yeah, you can heal me now. I'm ready to go. But just kind of working through that and really understanding that it isn't anything I have done or is it anything my parents have done, to make me this way. This is just a thing that happens of different people, and these are also to teach people. I think about how many, back to parents who may have been selfish or kind of, self-absorbed, and at some point they're saddled with a child that's disabled, not because that's their punishment, but it's just to kind of slow them down. And look how many, wonderful inventions and things that have come really out of adversity.
Absolutely.
Inventions and things that people make and things that people contribute to our world and our society and enhance our daily life. Like who invented the wheelchair, or who made, an electric car, or who made hand controls so I could drive when it was my turn. And so we wouldn't have those things if we didn't have people that had, lots of adversity. And the
Hmm.
other thing is not just, my faith, but I have something to really live for. And that can again go back to parents. We don't give your child anything, or you don't expect anything from them. And then they have nothing to look forward to. Like I
Mm-hmm.
look forward to releasing my books. I have a burgeoning career that's going here. And I just, I'm always warring against myself, like, oh my God, I'm going to live to see the rest of these books come out. And I got to make it to 50 books. I'm at 12 now, almost 13, but it's like I'm really excited. And I think that that can be, a big, huge issue. And I think that partly that's why Stephen Hawking lives so long. I hope I didn't say Stephen King earlier, but
No, it
Stephen
was Hawking.
Hawking
Yeah. Yeah.
lived so long because I feel he had a purpose and he
Yeah.
felt like a very desired and contributing member of society. And I think when you lose that, that's when you see and start to see the deterioration and the lack of striving on
Yeah.
people. So I
Yeah.
think that that's part.
Motivation is a very, very
It is.
important
It is.
facet about anything, about wanting to get better, right? If you're
Mhm.
not motivated to want to do something, then then what's the point? So,
Right. You have to have something to look forward to every day. I'm excited
yeah.
about writing. My job is so, but I like that too. I help people all day. It gets a little tiresome, but then I know I get to come home and I get to work on my book trailers or work on my writing, release my books, upload them to Amazon. All of these things are exciting to me and I look forward to them. And you can't look forward, if you don't have anything to look forward to.
Oh my gosh, so wait, hold on. I didn't realize this. So you have a full-time job and you write?
I do. I just went part time in July due to
Holy
some
schmoly.
unfortunate funding cuts, but I'm my 10-year anniversary on my job that I have now this year. And yeah, I'm a case manager for people with disabilities who have varying needs of housing and social services in the community. So that's what I do in my regular job.
Wow, I am so impressed. I am so humbled. That is freaking amazing. You know why? Because you would be so empathetic and understanding of other people in the same situation or
It's
even any close situation. That is so much better than a quote unquote a regular person who doesn't even understand, who has never been sick in their lives, because there are many people like that who don't understand that sometimes exercise can't help you.
mm-hmm.
Sometimes just the go to the will to live, that sort of thing doesn't help you. It's the right sort of support system that you need. I'm so happy for your clients, man. That is amazing.
Yeah, and actually, that's what I work for a center for independent living. There's over 400 of them across the United States. We all do the same thing. We might do them a little bit differently and implement differently and have different programs, but our core services are the same. And we have a peer based model that says, a person with a disability is the best person to tell other people
Yeah.
with disabilities how to overcome the same obstacles we face. So people see me working, they want to work, they want to understand. People see me help others get benefits, or even when they're being discriminated against for housing. All of us, in a peer kind of way, have been through that. And so we're the best person to tell someone else how to get through that and how to overcome that.
That's fantastic. So you also held other jobs in your life, like you were an adjunct professor. Do you feel that there was a massive difference in a quote unquote normal work environment versus the one that you're in right now? Because people around you understand disabilities, they understand what sort of accommodations are required, versus in a normal work environment where people are just used to just doing the base level, where they're just conforming to the ADA at the very minimal,
Mm-hmm.
and which requires a disabled person to actually be an advocate for them. So they have to go out of their way to scream, say, look at me, I need this, I need that. If you can't provide this, I won't be able to do basic functions like XYZ. And they don't understand the simple requirements, that it might be a more comfortable chair, it might be a more ergonomic desk, whatever that might be, right? And
Yeah.
for a lot of people, for people with visual disabilities or hearing loss, it's people understand that because they regular people go through that in their lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
But for other things, they don't necessarily understand that to that nth level, right? So what has been your experience in this?
Right. So you're right. Unfortunately, I think that the hearing loss and the vision loss sometimes really doesn't come until people leave the
Yeah.
work sector. And so it's still not as effective. Not that you would wish any of that on people just so they could be better advocates. But my point is just that, sometimes those things don't come until it's too late and you've done your whole life without certain disabilities. So you really don't have a real impact on the work environment. I will say that I actually left the government sector in order to work. I worked at a center for independent living for a few years, and case management was really hard just because I didn't know what I was doing and I didn't feel empowered, and I didn't like home visits. Most people's homes are very inaccessible. So I
Right.
actually left for a couple of years and went to work for the federal government. And then I hated that. And so I begged to come back to the center, and the person, he's a wonderful boss, he's deceased now, he had a spinal cord injury, but he hired me back, and he said, oh, we knew you'd be back, you're so great at this. So I just changed and modified my schedule a little bit, where people would come to the office instead of me going to their homes. Again, because I think part of the problem too was I had a new van, and I really was getting into all these tight garages and tight spaces. Of like, this van costs so much, and it's so important
Right.
to me. I can't nick it and scrape it and mess it up. So a couple of years. But the reason why I didn't like government is because I wasn't around my peers. They didn't understand what I was going through. I have a caregiver that comes every single day, 7 days a week, in the morning and in the night, to help me get up, get dressed, take a bath, and get to work. And when they are late, I'm late. I'm kind of laying in bed, sending messages, hey, I'm going to be late today, so-and-so's not here yet. And I think, private sectors and sometimes the federal government didn't always understand that and didn't work with you. So when I went to work, for where I work now, it was kind of like, oh, we all have disabilities, so we all have stories about, caregivers that come late and or don't show up at all, and then you have to call a relative to come and help you. So there was definitely that understanding and better times had by working with peers who also have disabilities. But there is a part of me that sometimes wished I'd stayed in the federal government. For one, I could make about $90,000 to $100,000, but at what expense? At what
Yeah.
expense to my stamina, to my soul, and even just morale? Kind of being stuck in a place, making a lot of money, but nobody really understands what I have to go through just to get here. Just to
Mm-hmm.
get to work every single day. And so a lot more, I wouldn't say a lot more leniency, but by having a boss who has a spinal cord injury and having other co-workers, and make no mistake, there's only 51% of the staff that has to have a disability. That's federally mandated. So not everybody has a disability, but the majority of people that work there have similar experiences about wheelchairs breaking down, about getting a flat tire and I'm not able to hop in somebody else's car because I have a wheelchair and just get a ride. All these logistical things that
Mm-hmm.
really impact my life and make it that much harder for me. There's no smooth sailing every single day getting to work. It's a lot of little things that go, and a lot of people that I'm dependent on to make it all happen.
Okay, cool. So on your website, you've also mentioned that you believe persons with disabilities could be employed and productive if employers would simply let go of their dilapidated thinking, personal bias, and limiting thoughts that cause them to focus on the person's disability rather than their ability. So, could you expand a bit on that? And based on your description right now, it almost one could possibly incorrectly conclude that you feel only if you are surrounded by people who have disabilities that you can flourish.
Mhm.
So, could you explain a bit more, please?
Sure, I don't mean that at all. I just mean that I think I was saying for me
Right.
that I loved working with other peers who understood. It
Yeah,
was
thank you. Yeah.
take those two apart. I could make it work in a regular environment if I
Mm-hmm.
really, really wanted to. And the other thing is that I had great parents who supported me during unemployment and not being able to, pay things on time, and who had that. But if it really came down to it, and I didn't have the support that I need, I'd have to stay at that government job. So it was other environmental things that let me kind of take time off and try to get back into the sector. But other people don't have that luxury. They have to suck it up and just get through it. My point about employing people with disabilities is just that when I come to an interview, people are already telling themselves what kind of support they'll have to offer me and already judging about the types of things I can and cannot do
Mm-hmm.
when they really don't know. So it's these preconceived notions. It's not being able to just be regular. There are people who can walk that can't necessarily, do certain things. They may be people that are short. They can't reach up high and get something off a high shelf. Should they
Mm-hmm.
be considered, they automatically considered that they couldn't just get a stool or find a tall person to help them. But we put these limits and labels on people with disabilities instead of letting them show you what they can do. When
Mm-hmm.
I always had a job interview and when I got to new employment situations, I've been working since I was 16, so I've had a lot of different people. I used to barter, and that was like my creative way of getting people's stuff. I was doing people's in the government when I first was an intern. I was doing people's KSAs because I was a writer. KSAs are these things that they used to have to help you get the next grade level and get the next position.
Oh,
So,
wow.
knowledge, skills, and abilities. So I would find the person who was looking to get out of there, get to the next grade level, and say, "Hey, if you could make copies for this for me, I'll take a look at your KSAs and see, and edit it and see if I can help enhance it for you." And people were like, "Oh my God, you do that?" And that was all because of the writing. So
Mm-hmm.
the other day I edited somebody's term paper, just my coworker, just because I wanted to help her out. She's a single mom. And I was like, sure. And I added 2,000 words to it and help her get to her page count that was required by her professor. So my point is that I always found a way to enhance my own skills and also show people what I could do. I can't do this. I can't make 200 copies of something for this meeting, but I finished the PowerPoint. I did it, really good. And then I need you to, copy it. And in exchange for that, do you have KSAs or do you have something you want me to write? People hated writing with a passion. And I could write a report that had to be 12 pages in like 2.5 hours, So when people find out what you can do, it becomes a great exchange for
Oh,
something
yeah.
that you can't. And
Yeah.
so I just look for ways to kind of barter those things that I knew I probably wouldn't be able to do, but I was able to do this instead. And will this help you? And they're like, oh my God, yes, I will make all the copies you ever need if you will do this one thing for me. So writing has been that much of a blessing, not just fiction, but in reporting, in making PowerPoints, all of those things have, just become because of that one thing.
Yeah, and this is a marvelous example of understanding your capability and capacity and using that to the maximum. And for example, well, I really suck at directions, so I will practically do anything to get people to my house versus me going to their house. So it's just a matter of understanding your own limits, and
Right.
if you have parents who will do those things for you, then you never get the experience of finding out for yourself and building confidence. Like, you would have had to already have found out that you're good at writing, you're able
Mm-hmm.
to do this better than other people, and therefore you can use it to your advantage and be like, well, I can do this, can you do this for me, right? And so having that confidence, and even to allow yourself, because it's a negotiation at that point, and
Mm-hmm.
if you take it at the base level, right, it's a
Right.
negotiation. So to negotiate, you need to be confident, and to be confident, you need to know what the heck you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, parental and societal influences on how to see a person with an issue. I say issue because issues can be overcome, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and because of some way or the other, you're gonna find some way to make your disability or your interesting ability to make it work for you. Because you
Yeah.
know if you couldn't write, you might be a software programmer, and you can maybe, oh my gosh, maybe you are the person who can put us on Mars, and
Mm-hmm.
who knows what. So you can
And
never
that's
you
the
can
point.
never underestimate a person just because they don't have a limb, or they can't hear, or whatever it might be.
Right. And just not discounting people at onset. That's my major points. Like, oh, here she
Yeah.
comes. What can she do? You already placed limits on me. You have no idea what I can do.
Yeah.
And you should give me the opportunity without any prejudice to see if I can. If I can, if it doesn't work out, then I'm also the best person to talk to about finding a way that it is doable.
Yeah.
Because there have been many things that I've had to modify and adapt in order so that I could do it. It wasn't just, oh, I can't do that. Next, do you have anything else? I would try to find, a way to get it done regardless. And that's a part too that I think, some non-disabled people don't always have. It's almost a blanket no, whereas when you're disabled, you have to creatively problem solve your entire day and your entire life. Everything you encounter is one big problem, and how are you going to solve it, and how are you going to meet success? Even if it has to be creative, even if it takes another day longer than it might have taken someone else, you can still get it done. It's going to be done a different approach.
Yeah, and to put it in a approachable example, if you can imagine every single situation that you face every single day, and every single party in that conversation or that situation will automatically put you down because they think you can't do it. Having to fight for your right to
Right.
do things
Mm-hmm.
is tiring. It is tiresome. It is annoying because you think like, oh, last month didn't we just go through this last month? Didn't I just already prove to you that I can do this? But sometimes people just forget, and they
Mm-hmm.
automatically keep pushing you back versus elevating you to, okay, I understand you can do this. I will give you the same job the next time. Instead of having that correlation in their head, for whatever reason, people forget because everybody's so self-absorbed in their problems that
Right.
they can't even come to a general consensus about these things. And it as a person with disabilities, it can get super tiring and annoying. And how do you manage to have a positive attitude with that? Because let me be frank, I have fibromyalgia. It's a chronic illness, and one of the worst things, it's the fatigue and the pain. I can
Right.
deal with that. That's my burden. But
Mm-hmm.
what is even more upsetting is when people push you down and say, what is wrong with you? Or
Right.
say, or for that's because it's an invisible disease. In your case, it's an overt disease where people see you in a wheelchair and they automatically place you down,
Right.
which is
Mm-hmm.
so upsetting. That daily struggle, I think, is such a big burden on everybody with a disability, no matter what it is.
It is, and I think there are numerous coping mechanisms. Some retail therapy never hurts, but I think lately, in the last few years, I've been journaling and just really writing out things. I have talked to a counselor. When I was going through some things, maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, especially with a relationship that didn't quite work out as I wanted it to, and it was really related to what I felt were my limitations, and that whole, wanting to being at the age where you build a family, where everybody's married and, you have your kids, and I don't have any of those things. So I think having someone to talk to, having a network of friends, and then, I have honestly advocated for giving yourself a day pass of nothing, where you really just kind of veg out. You get to watch TV, you binge watch your favorite show. I think we need more of those days where the pressure isn't so great and you just kind of give yourself a pass. Like my best friend died over the summer and I didn't write anything. And I gave myself permission to just, and she also had a form of muscular dystrophy and she died at 44. And I'm 42. And so you really start thinking about your own mortality. And I really look back over the summer like, wow, I lost a lot of time. And then I also give myself a pass and say, well, I was grieving, at that
Hmm.
time. I had to process, that. And the other thing that happened with that is that, and I've been telling everybody this, I even wrote about it in my newsletter, that her family really tuned out as far as her death. And she, as a person with a disability, I mean, a little teeny thing from Vietnamese, 60 pounds, just tiny, tiny, tiny.
Wow.
And we've been friends through elementary, junior high, and high school. So, we've been together a long time, great friend, great somebody I could talk to, give me a pep talk. But her family went out and did nothing. They weren't even going to have a funeral. And she was cremated, and it was just, she's just in an urn, just somewhere in the living room. And that really bothered me. So I channeled that energy and worked with another one of her friends to have the funeral. And, I did the programs, another writing thing and another graphic design thing. I did the programs in Canva, and channeling that and being productive and contributing what I could to help arrange the funeral, to help get all the friends and family there. And all the family had to do was just show up, because me and the other friend did everything. I mean, everything, getting the church, just getting things printed, getting a guest book, all this stuff that we did. And it just felt really good to know that even as a person with disability, I showed up, for my friend, and so I had to get through this. I lost a lot of writing time. I was just devastated, really. But at the end of the day, I gave myself a pass and said, you have permission to do nothing right now. You have permission to marinate in this, wallow, have a tantrum, so long as you don't hurt anybody, you don't injure anyone, you don't injure yourself. But just kind of, this is how you're going to get through this, and it's going to be okay. You'll lose time, and that book probably wasn't ready anyway. So you need to just, regroup and get through that. And so, so that death impacted me as far as thinking about my own disability, thinking about how shorter life could be as a person with a disability. And then that I felt like my friend's life wasn't honored and remembered by her family in a way that I thought. I mean, we in the Black community have homegoing ceremonies. They are all out big things. There's a lot of choir, clapping, people yelling, people just, celebrating that person's life. And to not see that from my friend just really devastated me almost more or as much as them actually dying. Because it's like, here's someone that held your household together, paid your dad's bills, did everything that they could, and this is what you're going to do, now that she's gone, you're going to do nothing, you're going to wimp out, like, how dare you? So I had a lot of different layers to struggle through that, but giving myself a pass, letting myself be okay. And, I still went to work, I still went through the motions, you get your regular things that you have to do, but I wasn't excited about coming home and writing. I wasn't really excited about anything. And so I just let that be. You have to just let it be sometimes.
So you bring up a good point, but I would just, I don't know anything about Vietnamese funeral processions and their
Neither do
customs.
I, but I knew we had to have something.
But it could be a cultural thing because in my culture, there's no hoo-ha about how amazing this person was, blah, blah, blah. You pretty much cremate the person. You don't keep an urn inside the house either. You actually just, spread it on the ground or put it in the Ganga or whichever river is closest to you. So the 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 processions and the funeral has everything to do with religious practices and nothing to do with the person's life and nothing to
Right.
do with celebration. So I don't know, it could be a contributing factor. I have zero clue about Vietnamese culture, so I can't speak to that. But speaking of culture, I did have a question. When you talk to people with color who have disabilities versus people who are Caucasians who have disabilities, is there a difference that you see? Or Asians actually, because that's a whole different other ball game there, who have disabilities. Do you find that there are cultural differences in how first parents raise their children, and second how the person views themselves and how society views them?
Absolutely. I mean, there are so many differences, it will make your brain scramble. Um, so as a child with two African American parents, very hands-on, very involved in early childhood and development, very present, and I would say the same for white families. And then I think culturally, other parents don't quite understand. I mean, it depends on if they are actually born here as opposed to migrating here from their country. I think that that is a real issue. I had a young man with autism, and his mother, he turned 18, and all of a sudden she was at my office door saying, please help him, please help him. When is he going to be, when is he going to learn this stuff? And I was thinking that you want me to work a miracle, basically. Like, he's 18, it's almost too late. Like,
Yeah.
these kind of habits of cleaning your room, hanging your laundry, these were all the things he wasn't doing. And she was very annoyed and angry about that. And part of that wasn't anything about culture. It was that you hadn't taught him to do those things from, like, let's say 4. Pick up your toys, put this away, hang this up. When something's dirty, put it in the dirty clothes. And so it was almost like she thought that as he got older, he would somehow snap out of his disability. And I think that that is a barrier that sometimes culturally they don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never really know what goes through their mind. I just remember, her plea, please, Miss Tracee, please, Miss Tracee, please, Miss Tracee. It's kind of all this every day calling me, please, please help him, help him. I was like, I can teach him certain things, but I don't go to people's houses. They come here, we get some instruction, and we talk about what's going on. And, sometimes it is great because I'm not related to them. And so there is a little bit of a respect factor that comes along with it. When you're at home, you disrespect your mother, you do whatever you want to do, but that's what was tolerated in your house growing up. And so, in some cultures, when your mom asks you to do something, it means nothing until dad comes along and says, do it. And then, all of a sudden you're doing it. But my point is that some cultures believe that disability is a temporary thing, that when you turn 18, you magically grow up and you're fine, but they don't realize the long-term battle that is going to be. And those things that they didn't instill can sometimes never be instilled. And the sad part is that the parents are going to die eventually. And then what? Who's going to put up with him? Who's going to not be able to, how is he going to live with other people? He's going to have to clean up his own space. He can't leave dishes living with, a roommate in the sink. You're going to have to really be able to take care of yourself. And that's the part that really scares me. It's because they just don't have the tools. And
Yeah.
that's really sad. I mean, they're probably going to, some people are sadly going to end up in a nursing home only because they didn't get any training, early in life. And the parents didn't have any real expectations for them. And so they let them do whatever they want. I know a young woman who has like a type of learning disability and Down syndrome, and she can't keep a caregiver simply because daddy gave her everything. That's the sad part. Nobody really wants to take care of her or help her. She can't go stay with auntie and uncle, all these people that are going to live longer. Daddy's already 70, almost 80 years old. Mom is deceased, and it's just her and him, and he caters to her. And so she could go be a great roommate with someone if only he had said no more often. If
Right.
only he had given her better tools to be a good, housemate. Somebody I could take her in. I'm single, but if you haven't learned basic skills, how am I going to teach you at 40 something, how to be a good adult?
Yeah.
And, I realize that people think that disability is somehow an excuse not to learn these things, but everybody is teachable. Yes, they may mess up. They may need reinforcement. They may need for you to repeat the instructions, but they can still follow them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you create a sheet that they can at least read, basic English. Pick up your room, all these checklist things before you leave your room. This is what you do.
Yeah.
Take the medication, 1 pill. Pick up, hang up clothes. All these little things that we're just not doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're
So,
setting them up for just a candidate for the nursing home. And then imagine if they go into a nursing home or a hospital and they can't get along with nurses
yeah.
and staff. I mean, what will we do then?
Yeah, that's pretty sad. I wish people would just try to understand and not be I think that a lot of problems with other cultures who don't have access to regular medical doctors or psychological doctors feel that it is because of a fault in them that their children turned out to be a certain way, and because of that shame and guilt, they either overprotect them or they shun them completely from society's eyes. And that is unfortunately, it just it just snowballs into something so much bigger
Hmm.
and so much more devastating than it would have been if people had just decided to love them as they are.
Right. Hmm.
And yeah, it's well, I'm just glad that at least you're in a position to help other people who want to get help. That's the thing,
Right.
right? Who want to get
Hmm.
help, who
Yes.
want to succeed, and you're there for them. So I'm happy for them.
Thank you.
um,
But
in
there's so many more that I can't reach and can't touch. So
Yeah,
that's work.
in as a romance author, you've written more than 10 books, right?
Mhm.
Which is amazing. Do you talk about sex and disability in your books?
So I actually had to struggle a little bit with writing about disability. I still am writing and have been for a few years about a character who uses a wheelchair. And it's
Okay.
been really hard trying to balance focusing on the story and trying to educate people at the same time.
Yes.
It gets a little too much on the education side, and I have to pull back. And that story is really close to home.
Yeah.
But, I have a character who has a skin disorder. So yes, I have talked about intimacy with that, but it's never been a book so far where the character may need assistance to kind of, get it on. So honestly, I haven't really touched that. It's something like really like, oh my God, how are we going to do this? What's going to happen? And showing her vulnerability as a person, with a disability. And I think that that's something even I myself struggle with. It's just being needy or being, asking for help,
Yeah.
to do things. And it's always a struggle because you just feel awkward. And
Yeah.
so I'm trying to give these emotions and these thoughts to my characters. And then, sometimes I'm like, I can't write this. And I just run away and shut it down for a little while. But it's getting there. I mean, it's almost 300 and something pages. So it will see the light of day. It's just, I really want to do it right.
Yeah.
I want disability to conveniently leave, when it's time to be intimate. And I read some stories that are like,
Yes.
it's the same with people who have children. When people have children in a book, the single mom wants to get romantic, grandma conveniently shows up and she can do whatever she wants. And it's kind of like real life doesn't work like that. So in order to do it justice, in order to be as realistic, but still kind of fantastical because it is a romance at the end of the day. But that balance has been really hard for me to find
Yeah.
by portraying a character with a visible disability, I'll say, with physical, disability. Much more
So,
difficult.
right. Well, because body positions, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Body
Um,
position and needing help to get in position.
yeah, exactly. So, what do you think about this phenomenon? This I learned recently, and it blew my mind, and not in a good way. Is that disability is seen as a turn on for some people. People who have these caretaker syndromes and who want to um, be in that position, mothering position, if you will. How do you see this in a lot of romance books? And how does it make you feel? To if
I
you
haven't seen it in any romance books, but I have known some friends who have certain disabilities, such as maybe an amputee, or one of my friends is actually a graphic designer. She uses a mouth stick and
yeah
is able to draw with her mouth. And she doesn't have any arms and legs. She was actually born that way. And she mentioned being in a chat room, and there were some weird people that kind of came in there and were interested in her just because of that condition that she had. So I think I would just laugh hysterically if I were to encounter that. I know it's not funny, but it's just doesn't. It seems so odd to me.
yeah
But I would say that watching a show like My 600-Pound Life, and how some of these women have husbands, there's nothing wrong with that. Anybody can fall in love, maybe but it's just the enabling factor,
yeah
kind of bringing them pizza. It's like, you're really significant. And I'm overweight too, but it's like they're significantly overweight. And then I don't want to love her like that. I don't want you to enable me and bring me pizza and hot dogs and, a whole pack of fried bacon. Like that, those just seem weird to me. I think that they can exist and it can be fine, but I will be honest and just say I've never had a male caregiver, only because I'm afraid, especially if he's single, I would obviously go with somebody who's married. But it would just be weird to have someone, if I were to become attracted to them, have them taking care of me
Yeah.
intimately. And I think that's one of the reasons I have stayed away from that. I'm just going to be honest that somebody who cares for you, even, when I have these relationships with the women who help me every day,
Yeah.
I develop really, deep connections and feelings with them. And that's why when they leave, it's so hard. It's devastating. I had someone who took care of me for 10 years and she got sick one day and just couldn't come back, and thankfully she's okay, but she had to stop working. 10 years is a long time. And
Yeah.
there's no sexual feelings there whatsoever. It's just that it was very mothering. I became dependent on them. And then to have them leave abruptly was just devastating. So that's one reason why I've never had a male caregiver, because I'm straight. And I just think that I could potentially develop something there that wouldn't be the right kind of relationship, because I would look at him as kind of like, oh, you're taking such good care of me, you're so great. And I could see myself developing an unhealthy relationship with him. But it's something to think about. It really is something to think about. I don't know about these people that have fetishes and things. I've heard of it, I've seen it, but I actually have not read about it in a romance novel of late.
Okay.
I just don't think it would work. I mean, people, I feel like they're there for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
They have the wrong motives.
Yeah,
And
and
so
and
those,
for people who are listening who don't know, there are certain rules for a romance book, including
mhm,
that it's not, a coerced relationship of any sort. It's actually mutual love and respect that ends
right,
up with a happy ending. It might be a happy ending for now or a happy ending forever.
right,
So it's not it's not like where there's a war going on and or a fight scene going on, they just happen to have sex. That's not what romance is. Romance is where, it's the struggle of the relationship, where they're or non-struggle, or how they develop feelings and
mhm,
how those feelings mature or pull back because of whatever circumstance. So because of those things, I actually agree. Yeah, it would be so much harder to write something so bizarre. It's bizarre because I can't see such a thing exist in a regular, in a mutual respectful relationship.
right. Mhm.
And
And we have to be careful too, because there's a lot of elder abuse. There's a lot of caregiver abuse that
yeah.
people don't realize. I mean, a man may go with someone, pretending initially as her caregiver, but he could be with her only because she's getting, Social Security or disability, and then he's kind of boosting off of that, and he can't ever leave her because she might make her own decisions or she might leave him. There are these kind of weird relationships that do exist, and the man or even the woman is only there because pretending to be that person's caregiver, get free room and board, live with them, get whatever they need, whether it's alcohol or drugs, all from that person's social security check. And because that person needs somebody, and then the person with the disability may feel trapped. They may have fallen in love with that person, but it's really an awkward relationship because that person isn't able to direct their own lives, and that person who's caring for them may make them feel like, I'm going to stick you in a home if you don't act like we're together, and we're going to get married and all this. And so in order to maintain even whatever little freedom they have, they go along with it. There's a lot of relationships like that too.
Yeah, you already answered my next question, which was about caregiver abuse. So, let's talk about some of the feedback that you get from readers. Do they understand? Are they, first of all, surprised that you have a disability yourself when they do find out, or which I would think is a fantastic thing, because that obviously tells that your writing has nothing to do with your physical issues, right? Which is what we've been trying to drill into people's heads from the beginning. Your capacity is your capacity, and don't prejudge. So, would you like to talk about some of the feedback that you might get when you go to writer conventions and author signings, or what have you?
Yeah, I think sometimes this doesn't happen that often, but every now and then people don't think I think that I've written all the books that are on
Yeah.
my table that I happen to be sitting behind. There's kind of like no deductive reasoning that goes on. And sometimes my mother comes with me to book signings and she'll be kind of sitting beside me and they'll automatically talk to her because they'll see the back of the wheelchair and they'll start engaging like, wow, these are all your books. And I'll be like, yes, they are. And then they look over at me like, oh, sorry. So, it's kind of funny.
But that's excellent.
It is
Actually, that's a
excellent.
good way to draw people out that way.
Yeah, but it's also why did you automatically assume that I wasn't? I was just here, like my mother's like babysitting me for the day or something, and I haven't any real contribution here whatsoever. The other thing is that when I do my class, when I used to be an adjunct professor, I would kind of go in and sit with other people, like I was one of the students, and then as the time got closer, I'd roll up to the front, and be like, "Okay, everyone, welcome. I'm your instructor today," and they would kind of be like, what?
Nice.
So it's funny that way. But honestly, I have to check that too because there are situations where nobody has any prejudice whatsoever, and it's kind of all in my head. And so I'm projecting that, and I have to have a talk with, my mother or somebody and say, you know what, some of that is in your head. You're already overcompensating, or you're feeling like, that you're less than, and you need to work on that because that is not how everybody feels. And I'm like, yes, they do. They just don't admit it. But so sometimes I do have to put that in check and kind of realize that not everybody thinks that you're not the one or that you're less than. But I think for the most part, people just don't know what to expect. And usually I often use humor or say something funny, and that kind of it really puts people at ease. And that's always been another strong suit of mine.
That's
To be,
great because I can't do that at all. I usually
yeah,
make people cringe and make people uncomfortable. That's my strong suit. Oh boy.
no, I just say something funny or say something truly just out of the blue. And they're like, oh my God, that's so funny. And they laugh and they're automatically relaxed and feel like they can engage with me more, which I am just a regular person and
Yeah.
I'm just regular. And so it's hard sometimes to project that until you really get a chance to talk. And the other thing is that what I hate mostly is that only after I give a little workshop or am on a panel of some sort, people line up to buy books. And they don't really pay you any attention until you show them that you know what you're talking about. And I think that part is like, I'm not automatically going around discounting people. If I'm interested in your book and I'm interested in you, I'll just buy. I don't have to wait for you to tell me a whole spiel to show that you know what. I had somebody say that to me once after after I spoke at something. They're like, "Oh, you sound like you really know what you're talking about." I was kind of like, "Oh, thanks so much," But at home, I'm like, "Why am I here? I wrote all these books. Surely I know something." So you have to really find a balance and really kind of discount some of the negativity that you get. But it's never all of that. It's just hit and miss here and there. It's the good outweighs the bad all the time.
Well, thank you so very much for sharing so much and being so honest and upfront about everything that you have been through, and for answering all of my questions. And is there anything you feel I haven't touched upon that you feel is crucial for people to know?
Really crucial for people to know just that we should give everybody an opportunity to to show up and to just be who they are going to be without your preconceived notions or your inherent experiences that make you discount and discredit people. So I think that if we all
Yeah.
did that, it would be so much better. And you would think that we've come so far, but we have come very far, but we still have a long ways to go.
Yeah, beautifully said, beautifully said. Thank you so very much, Tracee. It's been
Thank
such a
you.
pleasure talking to you and learning about muscular dystrophy. I wish you long and healthy, happy years to come. And what else? That's pretty much it for today. Thank you so much for listening till the end. If you need more information, I will also be putting up Tracee's contact information and her website. You can buy all of her books through her website or through Amazon and many other publishers. Thank you so much.